Look, we've flown through. The time has really burnt on, so we've only got a few minutes left. But one bit I just wanted to try and get a quick kind of sense of, and it's a question that's come in as well, is how we have seen during this period the way we work, the culture of our work, the behaviours of our work change, positively and negatively, because there's been some instances where people have talked about feeling more included, because Yodit mentioned Zoom fatigue. Of course, not right now. I should imagine no one's got Zoom fatigue at this very moment. But people have felt like this sort of environment is actually quite liberating, because we're all equal, we're all the same size, we're all got the same amount of real estate on the screen. But the question here is, have we seen less toxic behavior? Because sometimes cultures in the office can be a little bit tricky. And I saw that in some data I did with IWFM, where people were worried about going back to the office culture because they quite like being in their nice, safe home environment. So Patrick, come to you first, then to Dereck. Have you noticed then, is there anything that stands out in terms of, from Nationwide's point of view, we go, well, that's interesting. People have started to do this and reporting more of that, or worried about this?
So we saw during the pandemic, not so much today, although it's higher than we'd like, we saw a massive spike in verbal and aggressive behavior with people coming into our branches. So this is the general public.
Yeah.
And our colleagues, so much so that actually we had 19 branches where we had to put a security presence in just to support the branch staff. I mean, horrific. Within the admin buildings, and in fact within retail as well, there's a massive focus on people's mental health and their well-being, and being very, very mindful that the situation that they're being put in, that they have all the support they need to either talk to somebody. We launched an app to everybody to give them hints and tips of how to deal with pressures, how to cope with isolation. So there's a massive focus on that. There's also a massive focus on inclusion, and making sure that when we participate in these sorts of calls, that people do feel included. If we have hybrid calls where some people are digital and some people are present, that people feel included. So a whole set of rules. The one area that we are a wee bit concerned about, and we're really watching out for behavior, is those people who've been in the office in this safe environment for the last couple of years, how they will react when people start coming in and going out again, and what their reaction is, and how we can ensure that they feel that their safety is still being taken seriously, and the people who come in aren't casual with their behavior towards these individuals who've been in the buildings for a couple of years. They've got used to nobody being around.
Yeah.
So we're mindful of it. We haven't seen anything, but we're very mindful of it.
And Dereck, something that's, because what Patrick's talking about there, I guess, as well, is that there might be people that are in the office that are there because they need to, because of their home situation, but the kind of trade-off is that at least it's quiet, so that, because I'm also worried about the virus. So, and then suddenly, everyone's here and I haven't really got another option. And it just sort of, as I was thinking about coming to you, Dereck, some of my experience with offices and workplaces in Southeast Asia and places where you actually mentioned that there's multi-generational people in the house, multiple generations in one house. It kind of makes sense, because we saw at the time there was less home working and there was a real focus on the office. Have you seen not only changes in behaviors and patterns, but have you seen in different territories where previously understood cultural kind of norms have kind of reversed and actually surprised you about this culture here, which was very, very not about home working and didn't like that kind of flexibility, has sort of embraced it? Have you seen any really interesting geographical differences?
Yeah, I've seen. I think certainly, what has happened is, because everybody has been kind of doing the same thing, so we've had no choice but to all be on a level playing field, right? And what that has done, it has actually challenged some of the kind of the norm, the so-called norms in some of those places, whereby we've said as an organization, we're okay with you not accepting a meeting request, because I'm quite happy to, if I get a meeting request and I it's clashing or whatever, or I've something going on, I can decline or I can propose a new time. But I have colleagues who will just accept because it's coming from from the boss or from someone. And I think what we've been able to do, we've been able to kind of take an organizational kind of like, as an organization, we want everyone to have the same experience. Therefore, don't feel pressured, to accept a meeting, because I know some colleagues would actually cancel a doctor's appointment because they have a meeting that's popped up in their calendar. So that kind of thing. So we've been able to actually kind of thrash that out in a sense. Because sometimes, yes, we say yes, of course, think globally, act locally, but ultimately we are a global organization, and we want everyone to be, to have some form of equity in terms of how how they relate to the organization. So yeah, so I think that's been one of the things that has actually happened in terms of kind of leveling the playing field, so to say.
Yeah. It sounds to me as well, it's kind of almost it's giving people permission to work in a way that's comfortable and suitable for both. We've got to balance the needs of the organization, of course, but also people are people at the end of the day. So